Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today's build is Dan Mandel, the jerk from Dan Versus. For a bit of background, Dan Versus was an animated series that aired on the Hub Network from 2011 to 2013. The show follows Dan, a Los Angeles native with some serious anger issues. Every episode would have Dan being wronged by some entity, then exacting his revenge on said entity. Now you might notice I said entity and not person. Well, that's because Dan has sworn and successfully gotten revenge on everything from local restaurants to the entire state of New Mexico, the sport of baseball, and the abstract concepts of art, technology, and dancing. So, what do we want from this build? Well, every revenge plot needs something to necessitate revenge, so we need some truly breathtaking anger management issues. Next, we'll need to channel our anger constructively, giving it a target by swearing revenge. And finally, we'll need to be able to make our revenge plots happen, no matter what esoteric threat we face. Looking over at ability scores, we'll be using the standard point array. If you'd like to roll for stats, that's fine, just make sure your strength and charisma are high enough to multiclass. We'll start off with a 12 in strength. Dan isn't the most physically fit, but he can carry far more than his size would indicate. He is somewhat clumsy though, and more than one revenge plot has been started by him tripping, so we'll make dexterity a 10. Dan's greatest strength is that he never gives up. Once he swears revenge, it's next to impossible to dissuade him, and he'll power through practically any injury he gets in the process, because to him it's worth it. He's also much smarter than he appears at first glance, and the vast majority of his plots pan out, so intelligence will be 14. We'll dump wisdom though because of Dan's tendency to fly off the handle at the drop of a hat, lack of common sense, and his almost complete disregard for the people around him unless it serves his own needs. And we'll finish up with a 13 in charisma, because when it does serve his needs, Dan can be remarkably convincing, and he's a very capable leader. Dan's technically a human, but I feel like mixing it up a little. He's short and tough, so we're actually going to make him a dwarf, specifically the variant from Planeshift Kaladesh. We get +2 to our constitution and +1 to our wisdom, luckily still leaving us with a negative wisdom modifier. Our walking speed is 25 feet rather than 30, and we have 60 feet of dark vision, which should help with our nighttime vengeance runs. Dan shakes off a lot of injuries with no problem, and has been pepper sprayed so often that he's immune to it. Dwarven Toughness gives us an extra HP per level, and Dwarven Resilience gives us advantage on saves against poison and resistance to poison damage. We also get Artisan's Blessing for proficiency with 2 kinds of Artisan's tools. Combining Smith's tools and Woodcarver's tools will let us make our own silver arrows for when we need to take down the Wolfman. Artisan's Blessing also gives us expertise in history, but only for checks relating to the history of architectural constructions, like, say, knowing who carved Mount Rushmore.
Goot's on Borglum. Then his son finished it. Why?
And what state is it in?
I don't know! Ecuador or something?
Dan's revenge plots have a tendency to put him on the wrong side of the law, to the point where the police don't take his calls anymore, so take the criminal background for proficiency in deception and stealth. We also get proficiency with Thieves' Tools, so we can set traps, and one type of gaming set, but we're going to switch that out for proficiency with Disguise Kits. Given Dan's short fuse, it should be no surprise that we're starting off as a Barbarian. We get 2 skills from the Barbarian list, and a third one at 3rd level go with Intimidation, Perception, and Survival. As a 4th level Barbarian, we can enter our rage 3 times per day as a bonus action. We get advantage on strength checks and saves, resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, and we deal extra damage with our strength-based melee weapons. We also have unarmored defense, making our AC 10 plus our dexterity and constitution modifiers. Even when we aren't raging, we can express our anger by attacking recklessly, giving ourselves advantage on strength-based melee attacks, but giving other creatures advantage to hit us. And Danger Sense gives us advantage on dexterity saves against effects we can see, like spells, traps, that sort of thing. Dan has unusually sharp teeth that he can use to chew through any kind of restraint, from duct tape to steel shackles, so take the path of the beast to get a bite attack while we rage. It deals 1d8 piercing damage and uses strength, so it gets bonus damage from our rage, and works with reckless attack. It also restores an amount of HP equal to our proficiency bonus when we hit with it once per turn, though only if we're below half of our maximum health. Being a dwarf lets us take what is possibly the most Dan feat there is, Grudge Bearer. Our strength, constitution, or wisdom goes up by 1. I would go with strength so it meets our multiclassing minimum, and we pick a type of creature or 2 types of humanoids to have a grudge against. Dan's pretty equal opportunity with his hatreds, so whichever option you want to pick is fine. Whatever you choose, you have advantage on attack rolls against them during the first round of combat, they have disadvantage on opportunity attacks against you, and you add double your proficiency bonus to any arcana, history, nature, or religion checks you make to remember information about them even if you're not normally proficient with that skill. Next we'll jump over to Fighter to train in the art of fight dancing with the unarmed fighting style. Our unarmed strikes do a d6 of damage, which bumps up to a d8 if both of our hands are free, and we can deal a d4 every turn to a creature we're grappling. We also get Second Wind to catch our breath and heal 1d10 plus our fighter level HP as a bonus action, and Action Surge to take a second action on our turn, both of which recharge on a short rest. Dan fights a lot of supernatural threats and manages to come out on top most of the time, so we'll dig into the Unearthed Arcana to make him a monster hunter. We get proficiency in 2 skills from a limited list. I would pick up Investigation to connect the dots and figure out what it is we're dealing with, and Arcana to figure out how to deal with it if it's supernatural. We also get 4 superiority dice, which are a pool of d8s that refill on a short rest and that we can use to make our rolls better. We can expend a die to add the number rolled on it to an attack roll, damage roll, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save, or a perception check to spot a hidden creature or object, or an insight check to tell if someone is lying to us. If we use it to increase our damage, and that damage makes the creature make a constitution save to maintain concentration, they also have disadvantage on that save. Hunters also get some limited magic. We can cast Detect Magic as a ritual, and protection from good and evil once per day. And we'll round off our fighter levels with 2 ability score improvements and extra attack to attack twice with the attack action. Round off Constitution and Charisma to even numbers, and take the Savage Attacker feat to re-roll our melee weapon damage dice once per turn. For the rest of the build, we'll be using Paladin, which works surprisingly well for Dan. We get Divine Sense, letting us use our action to learn if there are any fiends, celestials, or undead within 60 feet of us. It's funny, Dan has fought demons and zombies, but despite being the most likely to disapprove of his actions, he hasn't fought any angels. We also get Lay on Hands to heal with a touch. This doesn't have to be magical, and Dan distrusts doctors, so flavor it as patching yourself or others up with a first aid kit and some Everclear. Divine Smite puts our Righteous Fury and monster hunting skills to use by expending spell slots to deal extra radiant damage with our melee weapon attacks. There's a lot of confusion as to whether or not this works with unarmed strikes, so ask your DM if it's okay. And if they say no, just pick up a baseball bat or some brass knuckles. In the game, I mean. Don't assault your DM. We're already resistant to the damage of pepper spray, but take the blind fighting style to not worry about the blinding aspect. We get blind sight within 10 feet, meaning we can effectively see any creatures in that range even if we're blinded or they're invisible, provided they're not actively hiding from us. Dan's also remarkably resistant to disease, especially considering the state of his apartment, to the extent that the first time he caught a cold was in his mid-30s, so divine health makes us immune to disease. Paladins all have to swear a sacred oath to uphold their ideals. The Oath of Devotion is for paragons of virtue who look out for the poor and downtrodden. That doesn't describe Dan at all, so swear an Oath of Vengeance instead. Of our oath spells, Bane lets us throw out threats and insults to distract 3 creatures who fail a charisma save, reducing any attack rolls or saving throws they make by a d4, and Hunter's Mark lets us identify the object of our anger, letting us deal an extra d6 of damage to them and giving us advantage on ability checks made to find them. Misty Step, Haste, and Protection from Energy aren't especially in character, but we can use Hold Person to have Chris hold someone down so we can punch him. Once per rest, we can channel our divinity, choosing between 2 options. Abjure Enemy uses our action to try to scare a creature within 60 feet. They have to make a wisdom save or be frightened of us, and have their speed drop to 0 for a minute or until they take damage, whichever comes first. Even if they pass the save, their speed is halved for the same duration, and if they're a fiend or undead, they have disadvantage on the save. Vow of Enmity uses our bonus action to give us advantage on attack rolls against a creature within 10 feet for up to a minute, or until they hit 0 HP or fall unconscious. We can also chase down our victim with Relentless Avenger. Whenever we hit with an opportunity attack, we can move up to half our speed as part of the same reaction, without provoking opportunity attacks ourselves. Aura of Protection adds our Charisma modifier to any saving throws that we or our allies within 10 feet of us make. I assume that Dan's mere presence is so aggravating to enemies that they try less hard to hit our friends because they're too focused on hurting us. We're also fearless and can bully our friends into doing things that are against their better judgment, so Aura of Courage makes us and allies within 10 feet of us immune to being frightened. For our last 2 ability score improvements, bump Intelligence to 16 for better planning and investigating, then use that as the spellcasting ability for some wizard spells from Magic Initiate. Poison Spray will let us turn the tables with some pepper spray of our own, dealing up to 4d12 damage to a creature who fails a Constitution save within 10 feet of us. And Prestidigitation is a wizard's toolkit. It can act like a bunch of wet naps for a
Pocket shower!
or most importantly, as a lighter, because as we all know,
Fire is the cleanser!
for our first level spell, go with Expeditious Retreat to help us flee from any crime scenes we may or may not be responsible for, by letting us dash with our bonus action. Looking over at spellcasting, Paladins are half-casters, so we're effectively a 5th level spellcaster. Searing Smite adds fire to one of our melee weapon attacks, dealing extra damage and setting the target on fire unless they pass a Constitution save or spend their action to put it out. Compelled Duel is good to call out one creature in particular, forcing them to make a wisdom save. If they fail, they have disadvantage to attack creatures other than us, and whenever they try to move more than 30 feet from us, they have to make another wisdom save. The spell lasts for up to a minute with concentration, but ends early if we attack a creature other than the target, one of our friends attacks the target, or we end our turn more than 30 feet from the target. It works great with Relentless Avengers, since if they try to run, we can make an opportunity attack and then chase them down. If we're going to be fighting demons, though, we might need some holy spells. Notably, the Ceremony spell can be used to make holy water, which Dan actually learned how to do after becoming a minister of an online church. Magic Weapon and Elemental Weapon will make sure that we always have something that can hurt our targets, and Dispel Magic and Remove Curse are good for thwarting whatever plans they may have. We can use Find Vehicle to get Dan's poor car, and Find Steed can summon an unusually intelligent animal to be our friend and mount. The creature doesn't have to be a mount, though, since any paladin can summon a Mastiff, even though only small-sized creatures could ride one. With this in mind, I would argue that we could use this to summon Dan's unusually smart cat, Mr. Mumbles. Admittedly, this is a bit of a stretch, so if your DM doesn't go for it, but you still want Mr. Mumbles, take Find Familiar instead of Expeditious Retreat when you take Magic Initiate. Now that the build is complete, the question becomes, how good is it? Well, we're able to soak up a good amount of damage, with over 200 HP, enhanced saving throws, several resistances, and multiple ways to recover our health. All of that combines well with Compelled Duel and our Oath of Vengeance abilities to make us a decent tank. We also have the potential for great burst damage, with extra damage from our Rage, our Superiority dice, and our Divine Smites. On the other hand, we're mostly geared toward fighting one enemy at a time, so if there are too many, we might get overwhelmed. We also don't have much to do at range. Most of our damage options are focused on melee. We have martial weapon proficiencies, so we can pick up a bow, but our low dexterity means we won't be great at hitting things outside of throwing range. And finally, our stats are not great. Our constitution and intelligence are fine, but low strength means less accurate attacks, low dexterity means low initiative and AC, low wisdom means we're susceptible to charming effects, and our middling charisma means relatively easy saving throws. But the stats fit Dan, and that's really what matters. Dan is an angry misanthrope with occasional flashes of brilliance who ranges from being a major threat to a mild nuisance, depending on the situation. Unleash your wrath on those who deserve it, but be careful not to drive your friends away. You don't have many to spare.
How dare you let your machine pick up?
You are scum! You're worthless, spineless, rotten to the core! That's it! We are no longer friends! I hate you! We are done! If you ever try to speak to me again, I will literally strangle you! Come over when you get this. It's Dan.
I hope you enjoyed the build. If you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, friends. I will see y'all later.